My name is Sarah, and I'm here to share my roller coaster of a story with you. Let me start by introducing myself and the situation I found myself in. I was a young woman, full of dreams and aspirations, when I met Alex, the love of my life. We had an instant connection, and after a whirlwind romance, we decided to tie the knot. Our wedding day was a dream come true, and we were eager to start our life together. However, there was a small hurdle we needed to overcome. Due to some financial setbacks, we had to move into Alex's parents' house temporarily. It didn't bother me much. After all, it seemed like a harmless idea. Little did I know what lay ahead. The story begins with me, Sarah, stepping into my new home, the house where Alex had grown up. As I walked through the door, I was greeted by a sense of nostalgia, accompanied by a hint of apprehension. I was determined to make the best of our situation and build a loving relationship with my in-laws. Alex's mother, Susan, was waiting for us in the living room. She had a warm smile on her face as she embraced me tightly. "Welcome, Sarah. We're so glad to have you as part of our family," she said, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "Thank you, Susan. I'm really excited to be here and get to know everyone better," I replied, returning her embrace. Throughout that first day, Susan showed me around the house, pointing out family photographs and sharing stories from Alex's childhood. She seemed like a caring and loving mother, which reassured me that I had made the right decision to live here temporarily. As the evening drew closer, we sat down for a family dinner. The dining table was adorned with a delicious spread, and everyone chatted and laughed, making me feel like a true member of the family. "Sarah, you must try my famous lasagna. It's a family recipe that has been passed down for generations," Susan said, beaming with pride. "I'd love to try it. It smells incredible," I responded, eagerly taking a bite of the flavorful dish. The conversations flowed effortlessly, and I felt a sense of belonging. It was a promising start, and I believed that our time in this house would be filled with love, support, and cherished memories. Little did I know that Susan's demeanor would change dramatically once Alex was out of sight. But that's a story for the next chapter. For now, let's hold on to the glimmer of hope that existed during that initial stage of our new beginning. As the days turned into weeks, I started to notice a stark contrast in Susan's behavior towards me. Whenever Alex was around, she would put on a facade of kindness and warmth. But as soon as he left for work, a chill would creep into the air and Susan's true colors would emerge. It started with subtle remarks, masked as innocent suggestions. "Sarah, since you're here all day, would you mind taking care of the laundry?" she would ask, her voice dripping with fox sweetness. "Of course, Susan. I'm happy to help out," I would respond, eager to please and make a positive impression. But as time went on, Susan's demands grew more unreasonable. She would ask me to run errands for her, pick up groceries, and even pay her bills. I began to feel like a servant in my own home, catering to her every whim. One afternoon, as I was dusting the shelves in the living room, Susan entered the room, her expression colder than the winter air outside. "Sarah, I noticed that the flower vase is empty. Would you mind going out and buying fresh flowers for the house?" she demanded, her tone laced with entitlement. Sure, Susan. I can do that," I replied, taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. "And make sure you use your own money this time," she added dismissively, walking away without giving me a chance to respond. Her words stung like a slap to the face. I had been using my hard-earned savings to fulfill her demands, and the gratitude I had hoped for was replaced with a sense of exploitation. The situation escalated further when Susan invited her friends over for a social gathering. I was left with the responsibility of preparing the food, cleaning the house, and ensuring everything was perfect for the guests. It felt like I was running a one-woman show, and Susan took pleasure in watching me struggle. As the evening wore on, one of Susan's friends asked, "Sarah, how are you finding it living here with Susan and Alex?" I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to betray the family secrets, but the truth spilled out. "It's been challenging. Susan treats me well when Alex is around, but as soon as he leaves, it's like I'm invisible to her. She piles on the chores and expects me to cater to her every need." I confessed, my voice laced with frustration. The friend's eyes widened, and a look of sympathy crossed her face. "Oh, Sarah, I had no idea. That's not fair to you at all. You deserve better treatment," she said, placing a hand on my arm in a comforting gesture. Deep down, I knew it was time to confront Susan and assert myself. But little did I know that the breaking point was just around the corner, waiting to test my strength and resilience. The turning point in my relationship with Susan arrived when Alex informed me that he had to embark on a month-long business trip. As he packed his suitcase, a mixture of excitement and anxiety washed over me. Part of me was relieved to have some time away from Susan's oppressive presence, while the other part worried about how she would treat me in Alex's absence. The morning of Alex's departure was filled with bittersweet emotions. We hugged tightly at the front door, knowing that we would be apart for an extended period. "Take care of yourself, Sarah," he whispered, his voice laced with concern. "I will, Alex. Don't worry about me. Focus on your work, and we'll be reunited soon," I replied, offering him a reassuring smile. With a final goodbye, Alex stepped out into the world, leaving me alone in the house with Susan. As soon as the door closed, I felt a strange shift in the atmosphere. It was as if a dark cloud had descended upon the house, casting a shadow over my existence. Susan wasted no time in resuming her tormenting ways. She treated me like a servant, assigning me a never-ending list of chores and errands. She demanded that I clean every nook and cranny of the house, tend to her garden, and even cook elaborate meals that were far beyond my culinary expertise. Each day became more unbearable than the last. Susan's insults and condescending remarks cut deep, but I vowed to endure until Alex returned. Little did I know that Susan's cruelty would escalate to unimaginable levels. One evening, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, Susan stormed in, her face twisted with disdain. "Sarah, you missed a spot on that plate. Can't you do anything right?" she sneered, her words dripping with venom. "I'm sorry, Susan. I'll fix it right away," I replied, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and frustration. She grabbed the plate from my hands and slammed it into the sink, causing it to shatter into pieces. "You're useless, Sarah! I don't know why Alex even married you," she spat, her eyes blazing with anger. Tears welled up in my eyes as I fought to hold back the torrent of emotions. I couldn't bear her cruelty any longer. It was at that moment that something within me snapped. I knew I had to stand up for myself, regardless of the consequences. Summoning every ounce of courage, I met Susan's gaze. "I won't tolerate this treatment anymore, Susan. I deserve respect, and I refuse to be your punching bag. I'm leaving," I declared, my voice steady with determination. A mixture of shock and anger flashed across her face. "You think you can just walk out? Nobody wants you here. Get lost," she bellowed, her voice echoing through the house. With tears streaming down my cheeks, I stood tall, wiping away the remnants of vulnerability. "Fine," I retorted, my voice laced with newfound strength. I turned on my heels and made my way out of the house, leaving behind the toxic environment that had suffocated me for far too long. Leaving Susan's house was a mix of liberation and uncertainty. I found solace in a small rented apartment where I could finally breathe freely and escape the clutches of Susan's torment. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I settled into my new surroundings, I couldn't help but reflect on the events that had led me to this breaking point. The abuse I endured at the hands of my mother-in-law had taken a toll on myself, team and emotional well-being. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. Desperate for support and seeking solace, I reached for my phone and dialed Alex's number. However, to my dismay, there was no network connection. Panic gripped my heart as I realized I couldn't reach out to the one person I needed the most. With a heavy sigh, I sat down on the couch, feeling a sense of isolation and vulnerability. But in the depths of despair, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I couldn't let Susan's cruelty go unanswered. I needed to find a way to get back at her, to reclaim my dignity and stand up for myself. Days turned into weeks, and as I navigated the challenges of my newfound independence, my anger and resentment towards Susan grew. I knew I had to take action. When Alex returned from his business trip, I would share my story and seek his support in seeking justice. Finally, the day came when Alex's business trip came to an end. The anticipation mixed with nerves as I waited for him to call. When the phone finally rang, I answered it with a mixture of relief and trepidation. "Sarah, it's me, Alex. I'm on my way back. I missed you so much. Where are you?" His voice was filled with genuine concern and longing. "I'm at the apartment, Alex," I replied, my voice quivering with a mix of emotions. "There's something important I need to tell you. It's about your mother." A pause hung in the air, and I could sense the tension on the other end of the line. "What happened, Sarah? Are you okay? Tell me everything," he implored, his voice filled with urgency. With a deep breath, I recounted the series of events that had unfolded during his absence. The relentless abuse, the demeaning tasks, and the emotional torment inflicted by Susan. As I shared my story, Alex's silence turned into disbelief and anger. "I can't believe she treated you this way, Sarah. I'm so sorry you had to endure all of that," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of emotions. "I should have noticed something was wrong. I promise you, we will deal with this together." The weight of his support lifted a burden off my shoulders. For the first time in a long while, I felt heard and validated. Alex's unwavering support filled me with a renewed sense of strength and determination. "We need to confront her, Alex. We can't let her get away with what she's done," I said, my voice resolute. "You're right, Sarah. It's time to take a stand. We'll face her together and make sure she understands the consequences of her actions," he replied, his voice filled with determination. With our hearts united, we made a pact to seek revenge, not for the sake of revenge itself, but to reclaim our dignity and put an end to Susan's toxic behavior. Little did she know that the tables were about to turn, and justice would finally be served. Armed with a newfound determination, Alex and I embarked on a mission to confront Susan and put an end to her toxic behavior. We refused to be victims any longer and were determined to take back control of our lives. The day of reckoning arrived as we stood outside Susan's house, our hearts pounding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. We exchanged a determined glance, silently reassuring each other that we were in this together, We stepped through the familiar front door, but this time, our presence carried a different energy, an energy of empowerment and resilience. Susan's eyes widened with surprise as she laid eyes on us, no longer cowering under her oppressive rule. "We're here to collect our belongings, Susan," Alex stated firmly, his voice laced with a newfound assertiveness. Susan scoffed dismissively. "Fine! Take whatever you want! Just leave as soon as possible," she spat, her attempt at dominance failing to overshadow our newfound strength. As we gathered our belongings, Susan couldn't resist the urge to belittle us one last time. "You're nothing without me. You'll never make it on your own," she sneered, her voice dripping with bitterness. With our possessions in hand, we stood tall, no longer afraid of her venomous words. "We don't need you, Susan. We're stronger than you think, and we're moving on," I declared, my voice resolute. Her face contorted with rage, but we refused to be affected by her toxic energy any longer. We walked out of her house, our heads held high, leaving behind the negativity that had haunted us for far too long. With our belongings safely secured in our new home, we focused on the next step in our plan for justice. Susan had always held financial power over us, using it as a weapon to manipulate and control. But this time, we were determined to turn the tables. One day, as we settled into our newfound independence, the phone rang and Susan's name appeared on the caller ID. We exchanged a knowing glance before Alex answered the call. "What do you want, Susan?" Alex's voice exuded a sense of authority that had been absent before. I can't pay the mortgage on the house. I need money, and I need it now, she demanded, her desperation evident in her tone. Alex's response was calm yet firm. We'll give you the money, but on one condition. You sign the house over to us. You leave and never contact us again. Silence filled the line as Susan grappled with the weight of the decision before her. Finally, she reluctantly agreed, realizing that her power over us was slipping away. We met with her in person to finalize the agreement. The atmosphere was tense, but we held our ground, refusing to back down. As Susan reluctantly signed the documents, we felt a surge of triumph, knowing that we had taken control of our lives once and for all, once and for all. With the house now in our possession and Susan out of our lives, we breathed a sigh of relief. Our journey had been fraught with challenges and pain, but through it all, we had emerged stronger, united, and free. With Susan finally out of our lives, we found ourselves at a crossroads. The question of whether seeking revenge was truly the best course of action weighed heavily on our minds. But the wounds she had inflicted upon us, both emotionally and financially, still throbbed with pain. We knew that moving forward meant finding closure and justice. Together, Alex and I devised a plan to make Susan understand the consequences of her actions. We wanted to expose her toxic behavior not only for our own satisfaction, but also to protect others who might fall victim to her manipulations. The first step in our revenge plot was to gather evidence. We meticulously documented instances of Susan's mistreatment, collecting emails, text messages, and witness testimonies from friends who had witnessed her true nature. We wanted a solid foundation on which to build our case. One evening, as we sifted through the mountain of evidence, a flicker of excitement sparked within us. This was our opportunity to expose Susan's true character and ensure that justice prevailed. Armed with our arsenal of proof, we sought legal advice and discovered that we had a strong case against Susan. We filed a lawsuit determined to hold her accountable for the pain she had caused us. The court date arrived, and as we sat in the courtroom, anticipation and nerves danced in the air. The weight of the past seemed to hang over us, but we knew that this was the final chapter in our journey towards reclaiming our lives. The trial commenced, with each piece of evidence presented methodically, painting a clear picture of Susan's cruel treatment and manipulation. Witnesses stepped forward, bravely recounting their experiences and affirming our claims. The courtroom buzzed with a mix of shock and indignation as Susan's true character was laid bare for all to see. As the trial drew to a close, it was evident that the evidence overwhelmingly favored our side. Susan's defense crumbled under the weight of her own actions, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. The judge delivered the verdict, and it was a resounding victory for us. Susan was ordered to pay restitution for the emotional distress and financial hardships she had caused. It was a small victory, but it symbolized so much more. It represented our triumph over adversity and the reclaiming of our lives. After the trial, Alex and I walked out of the courtroom hand in hand, a sense of closure settling upon us. Revenge had not been about inflicting pain upon Susan, but about seeking justice and reclaiming our power. We had accomplished that. As we moved forward, we chose to focus on healing and rebuilding our lives. The scars remained, but they served as a reminder of our strength and resilience. We had emerged from the darkness, stronger than ever before. In time, we found peace and happiness. Our shared experiences had deepened our bond, and together, we created a loving and supportive environment. Susan's presence was a distant memory, no longer holding sway over our lives. With our revenge achieved, we realized that true justice came not from seeking revenge, but from finding the strength to rise above the pain and create a brighter future. And that's exactly what we did. As we basked in the aftermath of our courtroom triumph, a sense of relief and satisfaction washed over us. The bitter taste of Susan's mistreatment had finally been replaced by the sweetness of victory. Our lives had been forever changed by the ordeal, but we had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever. With the restitution awarded to us, we made the necessary financial arrangements to rebuild our lives on more secure foundations. We used part of the funds to pay off debts that had accumulated during our turbulent time living under Susan's roof. It was a symbolic act, severing the final ties that bound us to that painful chapter. The rest of the money was wisely invested in our future, a down payment on a new home, savings for emergencies, and even a much-needed vacation to heal our weary souls. We wanted to celebrate the triumph and the newfound freedom we had gained. As we settled into our new home, a sense of tranquility filled the air. The walls echoed with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the toxic environment we had escaped. We had not only found refuge in a physical space, but also in each other's arms. One sunny afternoon, as we sat on our porch, sipping tea and enjoying the serenity, my phone rang. Curiosity piqued. I picked it up and saw Susan's name flashing on the screen. A mix of apprehension and curiosity surged within me. Taking a deep breath, I answered the call. "Hello, Susan. What do you want?" I asked, my voice calm yet tinged with a hint of defiance. Susan's voice on the other end was filled with a mix of resignation and regret. I just wanted to apologize. I know I was terrible to you, and I deeply regret my actions. I understand if you never want to see or speak to me again. I just wanted to offer an apology," she stammered. I listened to her words, the wounds of the past still fresh in my mind, but there was something different in her voice, a genuine tone that hinted at remorse. It was a turning point, an opportunity for closure. "I appreciate your apology, Susan. The pain you caused won't be easily forgotten, but I believe in second chances. Just know that we've moved on and we're focusing on building a better future for ourselves," I replied, my voice holding a mix of caution and forgiveness. With those words, we bid farewell to Susan, knowing that her apology marked the end of a tumultuous chapter. We chose not to dwell on the past, but instead looked ahead, embracing the bright possibilities that lay before us. In the years that followed, our lives flourished. We nurtured our love, built fulfilling careers, and surrounded ourselves with a supportive circle of friends and family. The wounds inflicted by Susan had become scars, reminders of our resilience and the strength we had discovered within ourselves. Our journey of seeking revenge had transformed into a journey of personal growth and triumph. We had shown ourselves that we were capable of standing up to adversity, fighting for justice, and finding happiness on our own terms. As we sat on our porch, hand in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of gold and pink, we toasted to our victory, sweet and hard-earned. Our lives had been forever changed by the challenges we faced, but we had emerged victorious, not only over Susan, but also over our own doubts and fears. Together, we reveled in the sweet taste of victory, savoring the freedom and happiness that had been hard-won. The revenge we sought had transformed into something far greater, a life filled with love, resilience, and the joy of overcoming. And that, in itself, was the ultimate triumph.